What is up, people? It's Untitled Productions, and I know. Let's quickly address the elephant in the room. Why am I making my first media review on supposedly the worst movie in existence? Well, the reasoning behind that is simply due to the fact that when I was originally writing my media review for Angel Beats, I had no idea what in the hell I was doing. And it was less of a review, more of a recap on the whole story. That is what I am trying to avoid with media reviews. But now let's get straight into my actually first media review, that is Transformers 2 Revenge of the Fallen. So from what I can remember of like the over 20 times I've probably seen the movie, I'd say it's still probably one of my favorite movies ever. Well, not surpassing Madoka Rebellion, Godzilla vs. Kong, or Transformers 2007 by any stretch of imagination, but I'd still say it's not a bad movie at all. So my initial thoughts on this movie when I first saw it, from when I can actually remember it, whatever happened, I absolutely loved it, and even at one point, it was my favorite one of the bunch. And in case you're wondering, no, I'm probably not going to make a media review on Transformers Age of Extinction or The Last Knight. Those two movies aren't really that good in my opinion, especially The Last Knight. That one's just cringe. But anyway, going after the 07 movie, I still think Shia LaBeouf still does a pretty good job as his role for the first three movies as Sam Witwicky. Not as good as the 07 movie or Dark of the Moon, but I still think he has his role in this movie as much as the other two. And the human characters such as Sam, Michaela, and Simmons do still have a good role in this movie as much as the first. I will say though, in my opinion, I really love John Turturro as Agent Simmons in the 07 film, and Megan Fox as Michaela Baines, not so much. Now the story overall, it was good, but after watching it for probably the 25th time, I now see why people don't like this movie as much as 07 or Dark of the Moon. The film is kind of messy and the pacing was all over the place, but still, I don't think it's terrible. It's just a little messy is all. And one thing that still stands out in this movie are the visual effects. Now, just like the 07 movie, the visual effects are very spectacular. Not perfect, but the CGI still holds up very well to this day. I just imagine how long it took them to model Devastator. I can definitely see one of the computers burning from the insane complexity that is Devastator's design, let alone all of the Transformers in the movies and rendering them all at once. Now about the actual Transformers, since Jazz is unfortunately dead. We now have a few new Autobots such as Sideswipe, RC, Chromia, Elita 1, Jolt, and the Twins. But a ton more Decepticons such as the Fallen, Megatron, and Starscream are back, Soundwave, the Constructicons, and even Devastator, etc. And to be honest, my favorite character out of all the Bayverse Autobots or Decepticons has definitely got to go to the Autobot Weapons Specialist, Ironhide. I know some people may disagree with me about this, but I really like Bayverse Starscream's design. Of course, not being faithful to the G1 source, but I've always liked the Dorito Seeker. Now when I think about their designs, dare I say, I think they have a little bit of realism into them. While not being totally, if not at all, similar to the source material, I think their modernized designs just give an added touch of realism, even though this whole franchise isn't that realistic, but do you get what I'm saying? I honestly think that Optimus Prime is one of the best redesigns of the Bayverse and being pretty respectful to the G1 design. Kind of. I especially love the Megatron redesign in this film. Although not my favorite, that honor would have to go to 07 Megatron. It is a very close third, just behind Last Knight Megatron. Now another thing that stands out to me are the action scenes. I will admit, the action of this movie is very explosive. It's always about the Michael Bay explosions, right? Of course the CGI is still excellent, that is still a thing to consider, but the actual action though, it's alright. But the two battles that I do like the most are the Force battle and the final battle. A 2 versus 1 with Optimus against Megatron and the Fallen. The Force battle is probably the better one of the two now that I think about it. But that fight between the Twins and Devastator, I use that word in huge air quotes, not really that good. Now about the Transformers voices, I still think they did a really good job in that regard. I am really glad they brought Peter Cullen back for the first 3 movies, and Hugo Weaving as Megatron, amazing. I will always respect the original G1 voice for Megatron, that is Frank Welker, but I think Hugo's impression fits the movie versus Megatron very well. And Charlie Adler, Starscream, I think sounds quite like his G1 counterpart if I say so myself, and I think it suits the character very well. Starscream has always had a very high-pitched voice for a Decepticon, and I do quite like that about him. But Jess Harnell as Ironhide, just like Hugo, although not being the same voice as G1, I think was a good choice on their part. And there are so many more voices that I won't even bother going over in this video, but all that I'll say is they still had some great voices for the Transformers. But now let's talk about some things I didn't enjoy as much in the movie. The errors and the nitpicks. Oh, where do I even start? Let's get this out of the way. Leo. I'm not a fan of Leo as a character, and I think maybe changing him up a little bit, or just getting rid of it entirely would have possibly benefited the movie, and maybe replacing him with what could have been there in the original TF2 script. And now, the CGI. Yes, it is in fact amazing, but I have noticed a few errors while watching it, such as this particular shot of Devastator climbing the Pyramid of Giza. And all of the other errors I've found I've completely forgotten about over time, but thanks to the Fire Brothers for that video. Nice drawing of Sideswipe, by the way. And this is not really an error, more like a nitpick, but there are so many unused character concepts that didn't make it into the movie, such as Mindwipe and even frickin' Springer! Some of those I wish that made it into the movie somehow. And I basically have nothing else to say after that. So that concludes my review of Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, and maybe one of these days I'll go around to make a media review on Transformers 2007 and Dark of the Moon. Age of Extinction probably won't happen, and The Last Night is definitely not happening, don't even ask. Of course this movie isn't the best, definitely not, but I'd still say it's not half bad. Now, going on from what I said the past several minutes, I'll give this movie a 6.75 out of 10. Not being the greatest, but far from the worst movie in existence. In my opinion, at least. Now that officially concludes my first media review of Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, and as always, I'll see you all in my next video. Peace out! Alright, next time, we got some a little bit special.